Nia Rivers didn't process what the sound meant until she saw the muzzle flash reflected in a puddle. 1 second, she was crouched behind a dumpster in a South Chicago alley at 3:14 a.m., trying to salvage a rain-soaked blanket someone had tossed. The next second, she was staring at something that didn't belong, an elderly Korean woman in a cream-colored luxury coat, frozen against the brick wall like a deer in headlights. "Baby, when you see evil coming, you move." Her grandmother's voice, the last good memory before everything fell apart. Nia's body reacted before her brain caught up. She lunged forward, grabbed expensive fabric and bird-bone shoulders, and threw the woman sideways into the garbage alcove. Heat kissed her left temple. The world went sideways in a spray of red and rain. Concrete slammed into her cheek. Her ears were ringing. Someone was shouting in Korean, frantic, commanding. The last thing she registered was the old woman's face swimming above hers, lips moving rapidly, and those eyes, sharp, calculating, completely fearless despite the blood. Then darkness swallowed everything. When Nia opened her eyes again, her first thought was that she'd finally overdosed on something contaminated. The ceiling above her wasn't the torn tarp of her squat under the overpass. It was smooth white plaster with recessed lighting that didn't flicker or hum. Her fingers touched fabric so soft it felt like liquid, sheets that probably cost more than every possession she'd owned in the last 3 years combined. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the Chicago skyline glittering like scattered diamonds, and for one disconnected moment, she wondered if this was heaven's waiting room. Then the throbbing in her temple reminded her that heaven didn't come with head wounds. "You're awake." Finally. Nia bolted upright, immediately gasping as pain exploded across her skull. The elderly woman from the alley sat in a leather chair beside the bed, looking like she'd stepped out of a luxury catalog. Cream blazer, pearl necklace, silver hair styled in an immaculate bun. Up close, under proper lighting, the woman had to be late 60s, with bone structure that screamed old money and eyes that screamed older secrets. "Where?" Nia's voice cracked. Her mouth tasted like copper. "Where the hell am I? What happened? I need to go." She stopped. What did she have? No job. No apartment. No one looking for her. "You took a bullet for me." The woman's English was flawless, barely touched by an accent. "The assassins fled. You collapsed. My security brought you here for treatment. You've been unconscious for 36 hours. Nia threw back the silk sheets and froze. She was wearing someone else's clothes, expensive cotton pajamas that fit perfectly. Her filthy hoodie was gone. Her boots were gone. Everything that had been hers was gone. When Nia opened her eyes again, her first thought was that she'd finally died and someone had made a clerical error about where to send her. The ceiling above her wasn't the torn tarp of her squat under the overpass. It was smooth white plaster with crown molding that looked hand-carved, lit by recessed fixtures that didn't flicker or hum. Her fingers touched fabric so soft it felt like touching water, sheets that probably cost more than every possession she'd owned in the last 3 years combined. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the Chicago skyline glittering in the distance, and for one disconnected moment, she wondered if this was what heaven's waiting room looked like. Then the throbbing in her temple reminded her that heaven didn't come with head wounds. Nia bolted upright, immediately gasping as pain exploded across her skull. The room spun. She pressed her palm to her forehead and felt gauze, medical tape, the sting of fresh stitches underneath.
"Easy.
You'll tear them." A woman stood in the doorway, mid-40s, Korean, wearing a gray dress that was too elegant to be a nurse's uniform but too practical to be evening wear. She held a silver tray with a glass of water and what looked like pain medication in a small paper cup. "Where?" Nia's voice came out like gravel. "Where the hell am I?" "The CO estate. North Shore." The woman crossed the room with measured steps, setting the tray on the nightstand. "You've been unconscious for 36 hours. Madam CO will want to speak with you, but you need to eat first. Doctor's orders." Nia threw back the silk sheets and froze. She was wearing someone else's clothes, expensive cotton pajamas in dove gray that fit perfectly. Her filthy hoodie was gone. Her ripped jeans were gone. Her boots, her backpack, the Swiss Army knife she kept tucked in her waistband for 3 years. All of it vanished. Everything that had been hers was gone. Where are my things? Nia swung her legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the way the room tilted. I need my stuff. I need to leave. Your belongings were destroyed. They were contaminated with blood, and the woman paused delicately. Other substances. Everything you're wearing now is yours to keep. Madame CO insisted. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs. She scanned the room. No bars on the windows, but they were huge, the kind that would shatter if you tried to break them. One door, where the woman stood. Another door, probably a bathroom. Thick carpet that would muffle footsteps. Furniture that weighed more than she could move. A prison dressed up like a palace. I didn't ask for charity. Nia stood, steadying herself against the nightstand. Tell your Madame CO thanks for the patch job, but I'm out. You took a bullet for her. The woman's tone didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe respect. She doesn't take debts lightly. Neither should you. I don't owe anyone anything. Perhaps. But the men who shot you are still looking for witnesses. The woman moved toward the door, then paused. The bathroom is stocked. Clothes in the closet. Breakfast will be ready in 20 minutes. I suggest you eat before meeting Madame CO. She prefers her guests to have their strength. The door closed with a soft click that sounded exactly like a lock sliding into place. Nia stood alone in her golden cage, watching the Chicago skyline sparkle in the distance like a city she no longer belonged to. The woman in gray, she'd introduced herself as Mrs. Kong, led Nia through hallways that belonged in a museum. Marble floors, art that looked too expensive to be real, windows that overlooked manicured gardens stretching toward the lake. Every door they passed was closed. Every corner they turned revealed another layer of wealth that made Nia's skin crawl. They stopped in front of double doors made of dark wood carved with dragons. Madame CO is waiting inside, Mrs. Kong said. With her son. The doors opened before Nia could respond. The office beyond was all dark leather and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The old woman from the alley sat behind a massive desk, wearing another cream-colored suit, pearls at her throat. She looked exactly as composed as she had with a gun pointed at her face. But it was the man standing beside her that made Nia's breath catch. He was maybe 30, Korean, wearing a black suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled hair, and eyes so cold they could freeze blood. He studied Nia the way someone might study a stray dog that had wandered into their house, with clinical detachment and barely concealed disgust. Miss Rivers. Madame CO gestured to a chair across from the desk. Please sit. This is my son, CO Diyun. Nia remained standing. I'm not staying long enough to sit. Just tell me where the nearest bus stop is, and I'll be out of your hair. You're not going anywhere. Diyun's voice was ice-wrapped in velvet. He moved around the desk, circling her like a predator. You're a witness to an attempted assassination. The people who tried to kill my mother are still out there. The moment you step outside these gates, you're a liability that needs to be eliminated. Then call the cops. Give me witness protection, or whatever. The police can't protect you from the Huang family. Madame CO folded her hands on the desk. But we can, in exchange for service. Nia laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Let me guess. You want me to testify? Identify the shooters? Sorry, but I didn't see their faces, and I'm not dying for. I want you to marry my son. The words hit like a physical blow. Nia stared at the old woman, waiting for the punchline. When none came, she turned to Diyun, who looked like he'd just been told to swallow glass. Mother, we discussed this. My late husband's will stipulates that Diyun must be married before his 32nd birthday to inherit full control of our holdings. Madame CO's tone was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing the weather. That birthday is in 6 weeks. Every suitable candidate has been problematic. Political complications. Family entanglements. Hidden agendas. So, you want to marry me off to a homeless girl? Diyun's voice dripped with contempt. A gutter rat who probably can't even read a contract? I want you married to someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Madame Sio's eyes locked onto Nia. Someone who acts on instinct to protect others. Someone the world has taught to be invisible. Someone who won't be swayed by the vipers in our social circle because she doesn't belong to that world. Nia backed toward the door. You're both insane. I'm leaving. Walk out that door, and you're dead within a week. Diyun stepped between her and the exit. Stay, play the devoted bride for 6 months, and you walk away with $5 million and a new identity. Your choice, gutter rat. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Nia didn't agree to anything. She just didn't leave. For 3 days, she stayed in her gilded prison, eating meals that tasted like they'd been prepared by actual chefs, sleeping in sheets that cost more than her life, and watching the security patterns from her window. Mrs. Kong brought her clothes, expensive, understated things that fit perfectly despite no one asking her size. She didn't wear them. The cotton pajamas were already too much charity to stomach. On the 4th morning, she decided to test the boundaries of her cage. The mansion was massive, 3 floors, 2 wings, more rooms than any family could possibly need. Nia moved through it like she'd moved through Chicago's alleys, staying close to walls, keeping her footsteps soft, cataloging every exit and camera placement. There were dozens of them, sleek black domes mounted in corners, their red lights blinking in steady rhythm. But cameras only saw what they were pointed at. Nia paused at the junction where the east and west wings met. 2 cameras covered the main hallway, their angles overlapping to eliminate blind spots. Professional setup. Expensive. The kind of security that said we have enemies and unlimited money. She counted the seconds between each camera's pan. 12 seconds left, 8 seconds right, then back again. Predictable. Automated. She slipped past during the rightward sweep, pressing herself against the wall beneath the camera's mount. The lens rotated above her head, missing her completely. From there, she could see what the security team couldn't, a service corridor behind a door marked staff only, probably leading to the kitchen. No camera coverage. Blind spot number 1. She kept moving, testing the pattern. The grand staircase had 3 cameras, but none of them covered the space beneath the landing where the marble met shadow. The library had cameras at both entrances, but nothing monitoring the windows. The solarium had motion sensors, but they were positioned too high to catch someone crawling beneath the exotic plants. Every fortress had weaknesses. You just had to know how to look? You're wasting your time. Nia spun around. Diyun stood at the end of the hallway, hands in his pockets, watching her with those cold, calculating eyes. He wore another perfect suit, charcoal gray this time, and an expression that suggested he found her efforts amusing. The security system cost $8 million, he continued, moving closer. Designed by the same firm that protects foreign embassies. Motion sensors, pressure plates, thermal imaging on the perimeter. You won't find a way out. I already found 6. Nia crossed her arms. Your cameras don't cover the service corridors. The motion sensors in the solarium are angled wrong. There's a 3-foot gap along the south wall. And whoever installed the pressure plates under the rugs didn't account for someone light enough to cross the marble edges. Diyun's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Interest, maybe. Or irritation that she'd proven him wrong. You're observant. For a gutter rat. You're predictable. For a billionaire. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and sharp. Those blind spots exist because my security team focuses on external threats. No one inside this house is stupid enough to cross me. Then I guess I'm about to be your first problem. Diyun smiled, and this time it almost reached his eyes. Almost. Actually, Miss Rivers, I think you might be the solution to a very different problem. Follow me. There's something you need to see. Diyun led her to a different wing, one she hadn't explored yet. The hallway narrowed, the artwork disappeared, and the marble gave way to practical tile. They stopped at a steel door, with a biometric scanner. He pressed his thumb to the pad, and it opened with a pneumatic hiss. The room beyond looked like a war room from a spy movie. Wall-mounted monitors displayed security feeds from what had to be dozens of locations. Warehouses, shipping docks, office buildings, all tagged with timestamps and location codes. A conference table dominated the center, covered in files and tablets. And sitting at the head of it, looking perfectly at home among the chaos, was Madame CEO. "Good. You brought her." The old woman gestured to the seat beside her. "Sit, child. It's time you understood what you walked into." Nia sat, more out of curiosity than obedience. Duyun remained standing, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Madame CEO tapped a tablet, and one of the wall monitors changed to show a photograph, a middle-aged Korean man in an expensive suit, shaking hands with someone Nia didn't recognize. "This is Director Han. He's been with our company for 15 years. Trusted advisor. Family friend. 3 weeks ago, we discovered he's been feeding information to the Huang family. The people who tried to kill you," Nia said. "The people who are trying to destroy us from the inside out." Madame CEO pulled up another image, financial records, highlighted sections showing transfers in the millions. Director Han isn't alone. Someone else inside our organization is helping him. Someone close enough to access our security protocols, our shipping manifests, our private family schedules. Someone who knows exactly where our cameras are pointed. Nia's eyes flicked to Duyun. "Your $8 million security system missed a mole. Technology has limitations." Duyun's jaw tightened. It records what it sees. It can't interpret intent or recognize deception. But people can. Madame CEO leaned forward, her dark eyes locked on Nia. "Especially people the world has taught to be invisible. Do you know what I saw when you threw yourself in front of that gun? Not heroism. Not stupidity. I saw a girl who knows how to read a room in 3 seconds, who understands threat assessment better than my trained security team, who survived on the streets by being observant enough to stay alive." Nia's skin prickled. "You're saying you want me to spy for you. I'm saying the world ignores you, Miss Rivers. That makes you the perfect spy." Madame CEO tapped the tablet again, and the monitors filled with images of well-dressed men and women at galas, boardroom meetings, charity functions. "These people won't see a homeless girl standing in the corner. They won't guard their words around you. They'll assume you're too stupid, too broken, too beneath them to matter. But I'll see everything they're hiding," Nia finished quietly. "Exactly." Madame CEO smiled, and it was the kind of smile that had probably terrified corporate rivals for decades. "My son's security system cost $8 million and couldn't find the traitor in our midst. You found 6 security flaws in 4 days just by watching and thinking like someone who has to survive. Imagine what you could do if you had access to everything, every meeting, every conversation, every supposedly private moment." Duyun moved to stand behind his mother's chair. "This is why she wants the marriage. Not just for the inheritance. She wants you embedded in our world as my wife, where no one will question your presence. Where no one will see me coming," Nia said. Madame CEO's smile widened. "Now you're beginning to understand." The transformation began the next morning. Mrs. Kong arrived with a team of 5 women, each carrying cases that looked like they belonged in a surgical suite. They descended on Nia with the efficiency of a military operation, measuring, photographing, taking notes in Korean that she couldn't understand. One woman lifted a strand of her natural curls, examining it under a magnifying glass like it was evidence at a crime scene. "We work with what we have," the lead stylist said in crisp English. Her name was Sunmi, and she wore all black like she was attending a very fashionable funeral. Madame CEO was very clear. No wigs. No extensions. No pretending to be something you're not. We enhance, not erase. Nia sat in the chair they'd positioned in front of a wall of mirrors, watching herself disappear beneath their hands. The first step was a facial, not the gentle spa treatment she'd seen in movies, but something aggressive that made her skin burn and tingle. Sunmi explained each step in a tone that suggested Nia should be grateful for the education. Exfoliation to remove years of street grime. Hydration masks to repair sun damage. Eye cream that cost more per ounce than gold. Your bone structure is excellent, Sunmi said, tilting Nia's face toward the light. Strong cheekbones. Good symmetry. The malnutrition hides it, but 3 weeks of proper meals and you'll look aristocratic. I don't want to look aristocratic. I want to look like myself. Yourself is exactly what we're revealing. Sunmi moved to her hair, fingers working through the tight curls with surprising gentleness. These curls are beautiful.
Wild.
Untamed. We'll shape them, condition them, make them shine like they're supposed to. But they stay yours. 2 hours later, Nia stared at a stranger in the mirror. Her hair fell in defined coils around her face, each curl perfectly formed, catching the light like black silk. Her skin glowed, smooth and luminous in a way she'd never seen it. Sunmi had applied makeup with a light hand, just enough to enhance her eyes, sharpen her cheekbones, make her lips look fuller. She looked polished, powerful, like someone who belonged in this world of marble and money, like someone who could be dangerous. Now the dress, Sunmi said. They brought out something that made Nia's breath catch. Not white. Madame Seo had apparently vetoed traditional bridal white. Instead, the gown was champagne-colored silk that shifted to gold in the light, with delicate lace covering the bodice and long sleeves. Elegant. Sophisticated. The kind of dress that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. When they zipped her into it, Nia barely recognized herself. The girl in the mirror wasn't the homeless woman who'd slept in alleys and dug through dumpsters. She wasn't the victim who'd run from her past for 3 years. She was someone else entirely, someone with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, wrapped in expensive fabric and barely concealed danger. Sunmi placed a simple diamond tiara in her hair.
There.
A bride fit for a king. He's not a king, Nia said quietly, still staring at her reflection. He's a mafia boss. Then a bride fit for an empire. Sunmi stepped back, admiring her work. Madame Seo wants you to remember something, Miss Rivers. This transformation isn't about making you someone else. It's about showing the world what you've always been underneath, someone they should have been afraid of all along. The door opened. Dean stepped inside, then stopped dead. For the first time since they'd met, his ice-cold composure cracked. His eyes widened just slightly before he caught himself. Well, he said finally, this changes things. The charity gala was held at the Peninsula Hotel, in a ballroom that dripped with crystal chandeliers and old money. Nia stood beside Diyun at the entrance, her hand resting lightly on his arm, trying not to think about how the champagne-colored gown made her feel both powerful and exposed. Remember, Diyun murmured, his lips barely moving. You're my fiancé.
Smile. Nod.
Say as little as possible. Let them underestimate you. Won't be hard. I'm pretty sure they already do. His fingers tightened on hers, a warning or reassurance. She couldn't tell. Then they stepped into the lion's den. The reaction was immediate. Conversations stuttered and died as heads turned. Women in designer gowns assessed her with surgical precision, their smiles sharp as scalpels. Men in tuxedos looked her up and down with poorly disguised curiosity. The whisper started before they'd made it 10 feet into the room. Is that her? Where did he find her? I heard she's from the south side. Madame Seo appeared at Nia's other side, resplendent in emerald silk. Courage, child. Vipers only strike when they smell fear. The first attack came from a woman in red, mid-50s, dripping in diamonds, with a smile that didn't reach her Botox forehead. Diyun, darling. You must introduce us to your friend. My fiancé, Diyun corrected, his tone arctic. Nia Rivers. Nia, this is Mrs. Park. She sits on the board of our shipping division. Mrs. Park's eyes raked over Nia like she was livestock at auction. Rivers. What an interesting name. Is that French? English? American, Nia said evenly.
Ah.
Mrs. Park's smile sharpened. And what do your people do, dear? Are they in business? The trap was obvious. Answer truthfully and admit she had no family, no connections, no pedigree. Lie and risk exposure. Nia met the woman's eyes and smiled. My grandmother taught me that what matters isn't where you come from, but what you do with where you end up. How inspirational. Mrs. Park turned to Diyun. She's quite articulate. I'm sure you've been working very hard on her education. Diyun's jaw tightened, But before he could respond, another woman swooped in, younger, sleeker, wearing a dress that cost more than a car. Diyun.
I didn't know you were bringing a guest.
She air-kissed both his cheeks, deliberately ignoring Nia. I saved you a seat at our table. You know how exclusive the VIP section is. I'm sure your companion won't mind sitting with the general attendees. Nia sits with me, Diyun said flatly. Or I don't sit at all. The woman's perfect smile faltered. Of course. How democratic of you. The attacks continued throughout the evening, each one wrapped in politeness like poison and silk. Comments about Nia's unique accent. Questions about which finishing school she'd attended. Pointed observations about how refreshing it was to see someone so unpolished at such an elegant event. Nia endured it all with a smile that never wavered, watching, learning, cataloging every insult and every face. She noticed how Mrs. Park touched the arm of a man who wasn't her husband, how the woman in the car-priced dress kept checking her phone with increasing anxiety, how Director Han, the suspected traitor, stood in the corner, watching Diyun with barely concealed calculation. These people thought she was beneath them, thought she didn't belong in their world of wealth and power. They had no idea she was counting their weaknesses like currency. You did well, Madame Seo said later, as they prepared to leave. You didn't flinch, didn't break, didn't give them what they wanted. What did they want? To see you fail. The old woman's eyes gleamed. Now they know you're dangerous. The morning after the gala, Nia found herself with a new kind of freedom. Madame Seo had given her access to the estate's family areas, the private dining room, the library, the East Wing offices where legitimate business was conducted alongside the shadier operations. Mrs. Kong issued her a security badge that opened most doors, with a pointed reminder that some rooms remained off-limits. Nia had no intention of respecting those limits. She'd noticed something at the gala. Director Han had received a phone call halfway through the evening and stepped out onto the terrace. When he returned, he'd gone straight to a younger man Nia hadn't been introduced to, whispered something, and the man had left immediately. No goodbye to his date. No lingering for the auction. Just gone. Now that same man was here, at the estate, walking through the East Wing like he owned it. Nia watched from the library doorway as he passed, carrying a leather portfolio and checking his phone every few steps. He wore an expensive suit, his hair slicked back, his movements confident. Staff nodded to him respectfully. He clearly belonged here, which meant he was exactly the kind of person worth following. She counted to 10, then slipped into the hallway after him. Her flats made no sound on the marble. One advantage of being poor was learning to move quietly. She kept a 20-foot distance, using the architectural blind spots she'd mapped days ago. When he turned a corner, she pressed herself against a decorative column, then peered around it. He stopped at a door marked Archives, authorized personnel only. Swiped his badge. Disappeared inside. Nia moved closer, testing the door. Locked, as expected. But the lock was electronic, which meant it would log every entry and exit. She pulled out her phone, a burner Mrs. Kong had given her for emergencies, and took a photo of the door number and timestamp. Then she did what rich people never expected poor people to do. She found the service entrance. Every fancy building had one. The doors the cleaning staff used, the maintenance corridors where the real work happened. Nia located the service hallway behind the archives within 5 minutes, slipping past a janitor who barely glanced at her. Why would he? She was just another face, another nobody in clothes that didn't scream wealth. The world had spent years teaching her to be invisible. Now she was weaponizing it. The service door to the archives had a simple mechanical lock, the kind you could pick with a bobby pin if you knew what you were doing. Nia knew. Her fingers worked the pins while she listened for footsteps. Click. The lock gave. She cracked the door open an inch. The man stood at a filing cabinet, photographing documents with his phone. Not reading them. Not making notes. Just photographing one after another, his movements mechanical and hurried. When he finished one drawer, he moved to the next. Nia took out her own phone and started recording. She caught him photographing shipping manifests, personnel files, security protocols, everything someone would need to plan an attack or sabotage an operation. When he finally closed the last drawer and headed for the exit, Nia was already gone, slipping back through the service corridor like a ghost. 20 minutes later, she stood in the war room, her phone connected to the main monitor. Du-yoon and Madame Seo watched the footage in silence. "That's James Cho," Du-yoon said finally, his voice tight. "My head of logistics. He's been with us for 8 years. He's been selling you out for at least 3 weeks, Nia said. Probably longer. Madame Seo smiled. Your $8 million security system wouldn't have caught this. But a girl from the gutter did. The call came at 2 in the morning. Nia woke to pounding on her door and Mrs. Kang's urgent voice telling her to dress quickly. 5 minutes later, she was in the back of a black SUV with Du-yoon, racing toward the industrial docks on the south side. "We have a situation," Du-yoon said, his face illuminated by his phone screen. "One of our container ships was boarded by customs. They found weapons hidden in a legitimate electronic shipment. If this gets traced back to us, we lose our import licenses. Possibly face federal charges." "Let me guess," Nia said. "You didn't put weapons in that shipment." "We run a legitimate shipping operation with occasional gray area imports. We don't hide guns in containers full of Samsung televisions. It's sloppy, obvious, designed to get us caught." The docks were chaos when they arrived. Flashing lights from customs vehicles, armed agents swarming the container yard, and in the middle of it all, James Cho, the logistics head Nia had caught photographing files, arguing with a customs supervisor. But it was the man standing behind Cho that made Nia's blood run cold. He was Korean, late 50s, wearing a casual jacket that didn't quite hide his expensive watch. He had the same sharp jawline as Du-yoon, the same calculating eyes. And he was watching the chaos with an expression that was almost satisfied. "Who's that?" Nia asked. Du-yoon's knuckles went white on the door handle. "My uncle, Seo Jin-ho. My father's younger brother." "Family," Nia breathed. They approached the scene just as the customs supervisor was threatening to expand the search to all Seo Corporation containers. Du-yoon stepped forward with the kind of calm authority that made armed federal agents pause. "There's been a mistake," he said smoothly. "James, what's the container number?" Cho rattled it off, looking genuinely distressed. Du-yoon pulled up records on his tablet, then frowned. "This container was flagged for secondary inspection 3 days ago. Internal audit. James, you signed off on the override." "I what?" "No, I never." Cho's face went pale. "Sir, I would never override a safety protocol." "The digital signature is yours," Du-yoon said coldly. Nia watched Uncle Jin-ho. While everyone else focused on Cho's mounting panic, the older man's expression shifted, just for a second, from satisfaction to concern. Like a chess player realizing his opponent had seen 3 moves ahead. She'd learned on the streets that the person who seemed least worried was usually the one who had the most to hide. "Check his phone," Nia said quietly. Every head turned toward her. Du-yoon's uncle looked at her for the first time, his eyes narrowing. "And who are you?" "His fiancée," Nia said. "Check James Cho's phone." If someone forged his digital signature, they needed his login credentials. Which means they either hacked him or had someone feed them the information. Du-yoon caught on immediately. "James, your phone."
Now.
Cho handed it over with shaking hands. Du-yoon scrolled through recent messages, then stopped. His expression went perfectly blank, the kind of blank that meant he was furious. "There's a text thread here," he said slowly. "From an encrypted number. It's been deleted, but the metadata remains. Someone texted Cho new protocol updates 2 days ago. Attachments included revised shipping manifests and authorization codes." "Who sent them?" the customs supervisor demanded. Du-yoon looked up at his uncle. "The texts were routed through our internal family server. Only 4 people have access to that system. Mother, myself, our head of security, and Uncle Jin-ho." The silence that followed was deafening. Uncle Jin-ho smiled. "You're accusing me based on a homeless girl's hunch?" "I'm accusing you based on evidence," Du-yoon said. "That she found." The confrontation at the docks ended with Uncle Jin-ho in federal custody and James Cho cleared of all charges. The weapons containers were traced back to shell companies owned by Jin-ho and the Huang family, a joint operation designed to destroy Diyun's legitimacy and seize control of the CO empire. The customs agents found encrypted communications, financial transfers, even security footage that Jin-ho had been too arrogant to properly delete. All because Nia had noticed one man's expression in a crowd of chaos. 3 days later, Madame CO summoned her to the war room. The monitors were dark. The files were gone. It was just the old woman, sitting at the head of the table with a small velvet box in front of her. "Sit, child." Nia sat, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You saved this family twice," Madame CO said. "Once with your body, taking a bullet meant for me. And once with your mind, seeing what our expensive security and educated executives could not. My son's uncle, his own blood, was trying to destroy him. And you caught it, because you understand something these wealthy fools never will." "What's that?" "The people at the bottom see everything the people at the top miss." Madame CO pushed the velvet box across the table. "Open it." Inside was a ring. Not the massive diamond Nia had expected, but something more elegant, a deep green emerald surrounded by smaller diamonds, set in platinum. It looked like power condensed into jewelry. "This was my mother-in-law's ring," Madame CO said. "She wore it through wars, coups, and corporate takeovers. She built this empire from nothing but intelligence and ruthlessness. I think she would have liked you." Nia stared at the ring, her throat tight. "I'm not her.
I'm not you.
I'm just a girl who survived 3 years on the streets by being smarter and braver than anyone gave her credit for." Madame CO's smile was fierce. Just a girl who threw herself in front of a bullet for a stranger? Just a girl who found 2 traitors in less than 2 weeks while my multi-million-dollar security team found nothing. The door opened. Diyun entered, wearing another perfect suit, but his eyes held something Nia hadn't seen before.
Respect.
Maybe even admiration. "The board met this morning," he said. "With Uncle Jin-ho's arrest and the evidence you provided, they've unanimously approved my early inheritance. The company is mine." He paused. "Ours, if you agree to the original arrangement." 6 months as your bride," Nia said. "Then $5 million and a new identity." "Actually," Madame CO interjected, "I'm amending the offer. The $5 million remains. But I'm also offering you a position. Head of Internal Security. You'd work directly under Diyun, hunting the threats that traditional security misses. Using your unique perspective to protect what we've built." Nia looked between them. The Ice King and the Matriarch, the people who'd pulled her from the gutter and offered her something she'd never had before. Not just money. Not just safety, but power. Purpose. A seat at the table instead of scraps beneath it. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago, digging through dumpsters, invisible to everyone who mattered. She thought about the woman in the mirror after Sunmi's transformation. Sharp, dangerous, ready. She thought about her grandmother's voice. "When you see evil coming, you move." Nia picked up the ring and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I accept," she said. "All of it." Diyun's lips curved into something that might have been a genuine smile. "Then welcome to the family, Mrs. CO." Madame CO raised a glass of whiskey Nia hadn't noticed. "To the Mafia queen. May she be as ruthless as she is brilliant." Nia raised her own glass, meeting their eyes without flinching. The homeless girl was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone who'd learned that the only way to never be a victim again was to become the person everyone else feared. The transformation was complete.